Your brain is running at roughly 60% of its full capacity right now. Not because of stress, not because of age, and not because of anything you were born with. It is because of what you did or did not do with your body today. And the research proving this has been sitting in plain sight for decades. Welcome to Get Up Life. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover exactly how your physical body directly controls your mental output, why some of the smartest people in history were also obsessively physical, and the one biological mechanism that most productivity gurus completely ignore when they tell you how to perform better. This is not about fitness motivation. This is about understanding the machine you are working with every single day. For most of human history, the mind and the body were treated as one unified system. Ancient Greek philosophers did not just sit and think. They walked, they wrestled, they trained. Aristotle famously taught while walking, and his school of thought was literally named after the Greek word for walking around. The Peripatetics believed that physical movement and intellectual sharpness were inseparable. This was not a coincidence or a quirky habit. They had observed something real through centuries of lived experience. Then, somewhere in the modern era, a split happened. We started celebrating the image of the genius sitting still, hunched over a desk, mind working while the body stayed passive. We built an entire culture around sedentary intellectual work and assumed that thinking had nothing to do with moving. That assumption has cost us enormously. The science is now unambiguous. Physical health and mental performance are not two separate categories. They are the same conversation. Your cardiovascular system, your muscle tissue, your sleep quality, your nutrition, and your movement patterns all directly determine how well your brain can think, focus, retain information, and solve problems. The research coming out of Harvard Medical School, Stanford, and the University of British Columbia has made this crystal clear over the past 2 decades, and what they have found should fundamentally change how you approach your daily routine. Here is the first mechanism, and it is probably the most important one. When you exercise, your body produces a protein called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Neuroscientist John Ratey at Harvard calls it Miracle-Gro for the brain. BDNF stimulates the growth of new neurons, strengthens existing neural connections, and dramatically improves the speed at which your brain processes information. A 2013 study published in the journal Neuroscience found that people who exercised regularly had significantly higher BDNF levels and performed measurably better on memory and cognitive tests. The effect was not small. It was not a rounding error. It was a substantial, measurable difference in brain function tied directly to physical activity. But here's what nobody talks about. The reverse is equally true. Sedentary behavior actively shrinks the brain. A study from UCLA found that people who spent more hours sitting each day had thinner regions in the medial temporal lobe, which is the part of the brain most critical for memory formation. This is not a theory. They measured actual brain tissue. The people who moved less had physically smaller, less dense brain matter in the area most responsible for learning and memory. Sitting is not neutral. It is destructive. Now think about cardiovascular health specifically. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's total oxygen supply despite being only 2% of your body weight. It is the most oxygen-hungry organ you have. When your cardiovascular system is weak, blood flow to the brain is reduced, oxygen delivery is compromised, and your mental performance degrades accordingly. A 2020 study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that even a single 20-minute session of moderate aerobic exercise produced immediate improvements in executive function, attention, and information processing speed. Not after weeks of training. After one session. That is how directly the cardiovascular system feeds your cognitive capacity. Sleep is the next piece of this equation, and it connects physical health to mental performance in a way that almost nobody fully appreciates. During sleep, your brain activates something called the glymphatic system. This is essentially a waste clearance system unique to the brain that flushes out toxic proteins, including amyloid beta, which is directly associated with Alzheimer's disease. Poor sleep, which is often tied to poor physical health, disrupts this clearance process. But here is the critical detail. Exercise dramatically improves sleep quality. A meta-analysis published in Sleep Medicine Reviews analyzing data from over 2,800 participants found that regular physical exercise reduced the time it took to fall asleep and increased the proportion of deep sleep, which is when lymphatic clearance is most active. So when you exercise, you sleep better, and when you sleep better, your brain literally cleans itself more efficiently. This is a compounding cycle of cognitive protection that most people are completely opting out of. Now let us talk about inflammation, because this is where things get genuinely alarming. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which is driven by poor diet, physical inactivity, and obesity, is now understood to be one of the primary causes of depression, cognitive decline, and anxiety. This is not a metaphor. Inflammatory cytokines, which are signaling proteins released during chronic inflammation, cross the blood-brain barrier and directly interfere with neurotransmitter production. They reduce dopamine and serotonin synthesis. They impair the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and long-term planning. When researchers at King's College London examined the relationship between inflammatory markers and cognitive performance, they found that people with elevated inflammation consistently performed worse on tests of memory, attention, and processing speed. Physical activity is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory tools we have available to us, and it is completely free. What does all of this look like in a real human life? Consider this. A 2014 study followed over 1 million women in the United Kingdom and found that those with the highest levels of physical fitness had a 31% lower risk of depression compared to those with the lowest fitness levels. Another study published in JAMA Psychiatry found that running for 15 minutes a day or walking for an hour reduced the risk of major depression by 26%. These numbers rival the effectiveness of pharmaceutical interventions in some populations. Exercise is not a supplement to mental health treatment. For many people, it is the treatment. Then consider cognitive longevity. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running cardiovascular studies in history, found that people with poor cardiovascular fitness in midlife were significantly more likely to develop dementia decades later. The health decisions you make with your body in your 30s and 40s are literally writing the story of what your mind will be capable of in your 60s and 70s. This is not a distant, abstract risk. It is a biological chain of cause and effect that is already in motion for every person who is sedentary today. Here is the real-world implication of everything you have just heard. If you are trying to be more productive, more creative, sharper in meetings, better at solving problems, more emotionally resilient, and more mentally clear, the answer is not another app. It is not a new journaling method or a time-blocking system. The foundation of all mental performance is physical health. The data is not ambiguous. It is overwhelming. Aerobic exercise 3 to 5 times per week, adequate sleep, reduced chronic inflammation through diet and movement, and consistent cardiovascular health directly produce measurable gains in attention, memory, processing speed, emotional regulation, and protection against cognitive decline. To bring this together, your body and your brain are one system. BDNF from exercise grows new neurons. Cardiovascular health delivers the oxygen your brain needs to function at full capacity. Sleep driven by physical activity flushes the toxic waste that leads to cognitive decline. Reduced inflammation allows your neurotransmitters to work properly. These are not lifestyle suggestions. They are the biological prerequisites for peak mental performance. Every high performer who has ever credited their physical habits for their mental edge was not being poetic. They were describing a mechanism that science has since verified in extraordinary detail. The question is simply whether you will use this information or let it sit. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Get Up Life for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.